the presentation. Sound good?
Sounds good. Perfect. So everybody, welcome. This is the 60th plus version of Travel Tuesday. A lot of you folks have been here before. You know how it works. For any newbies, welcome, and welcome to returning people. As you remember, we're trying to still encourage that travel dreaming. We are starting to get people to travel again. I have clients. I'm working with Carson on some clients leaving tomorrow. So I am getting folks moving. New Zealand and Australia, a little bit more difficult. And Chris, our partner in Auckland, New Zealand, will go through that with us today. Just a refresher, the most recent Travel Tuesday I hosted Norwegian Adventures. So if that interests you and you would like the recording, please let me know. And next week we have Four Seasons Toronto. So if you want to look at a staycation closer to home, please let me know. And we have some other ones that are being confirmed, but I do have And Beyond Africa for October 26th. There will be a solo travel one coming up, as well as the travel trivia I try to do once a month, and that's great fun. But other than that, welcome. We're going to dream about New Zealand here today with Chris Hall. And Chris, let me turn it over to you. Or Carson, did you want to say an introductory word, or over to Chris?
Yeah, of course. I'll just quickly introduce. I think I'm seeing some familiar faces from our Abercrombie and Kent Southeast Asia Travel Tuesday a few months back. And so it's great to see some familiar faces. And I'm super excited to have Chris here today from our team at A&K New Zealand. I think they are eager to receive guests and just waiting for the borders to open. And I think we all can agree it's going to be a destination that will be high in demand once they do open. And so we're very excited about that, and think this will be a great opportunity for you to start, thinking about what there is to see in New Zealand. It's such a beautiful country, and Chris will do an amazing job here going through everything that we have to offer in that region. And yeah, Sheila had mentioned we are working together on a trip for Europe, and there are some other destinations that are kind of opening up, and we're receiving guests in Africa and Egypt and Morocco and Peru and the Galapagos. So as more and more countries open up, Sheila will keep you up to date. And if we can help you, reach out to Sheila, and she'll get in touch with us. And we look forward to helping you explore the world when it's safe.
Thank you, Carson. And just to interject just a little bit here, one of the reasons I love working with Abercrombie and Kent, I have feet on the ground experts around the world. Vision Travel, Direct Travel, my host agency, is a member of A&K Top 100 Club. So that means we have very strong relationships with them. Just to give you an example of the trip we're doing tomorrow to Europe, young couple, they are going to Paris and Lake Como, and then heading to London at the tail end. So I'm dealing with the feet on the ground experts to do the transfers, do the hotel, do the flights, advise about all the entry requirements and transiting requirements and testing requirements, which if you've been paying attention to travel, it can change on a dime, and it can change sometimes closer than even overnight. I think the Netherlands introduced something on September 3rd that was effective midnight. So this is why I work with experts on the ground. Besides all the work I do with our destination management software that we have to follow entry and exit requirements, it's working with people who are on the ground who have the most up-to-date information. Just as we have the most up-to-date information about what is happening in Canada, we look to people who have the most up-to-date information, like our friend Chris in Auckland. So with that lengthy introduction, Chris, let me turn it over to you. Thanks for your patience. I will minimize the faces for the presentation, and we'll shoot it over to you, Chris.
Awesome. And can you guys all see the presentation front screen? Yep, it says Explore New Zealand. Got a picture of a tui bird in Milford Sound. Everyone can see that? Yeah, cool. All right, let's get cracking. Okay, well, I'd like to say from New Zealand, hello, and it's nice to have so many people join this call. It's just gone 9 a.m. here on Wednesday. And it's spring, obviously. It's a different season here. So the days are getting longer. We're going to put our clocks forward in a couple of weeks, which we're pretty excited about. Yeah, things are good in our part of the world, apart from Auckland being completely locked down. But we'll get out of it soon. Let's get into New Zealand as a destination. Okay. Right. Let me just see. So my name's Chris Ball. I'm the country manager for New Zealand. I have been in this role almost 2 years. Before that, I was up living in Japan, in Kyoto, running my own food and walking tour business for a couple of years. And then I had 10 years living in Australia, also working in travel. But I grew up in New Zealand, all my family's here. And when the opportunity came to come back to New Zealand after spending a lot of time living and working overseas, to be close to my folks who are obviously getting a little bit older and to be close to the family, I took it. And yeah, here I am 2 years later. So one of the things I love about New Zealand, and obviously I think most people on this call are from Canada, is that we've just got incredible wide open spaces in such a really small geographic area. So when I joined A&K in November of 2019, one of the first inspection trips I did was to go down to the South Island to see some of the beautiful products that we offer clients. And so this is a couple of pictures of that particular trip. So the one on the left is one of our heli access tours when I went up into the Southern Alps and landed on this remote mountain that's only accessible by helicopter. And on the right, this is Milford Sound, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in the proposal, but this is definitely a highlight. Stunning location at the bottom of the South Island where you have 2,000-meter snow-capped peaks, as you can see behind me, that just rise straight out of the Sound, and just incredible wildlife in the water as well. Beautiful place to go for a cruise, to go kayaking as well. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things in this presentation, just to really give you guys a snapshot of what we can offer you if you come down to our beautiful part of the world. One of the things that we're doing a lot more of, and it's being asked a lot more of, is private villa rentals. So we've got connections with some of the most exclusive properties throughout the North and South Island. It could be as small as a 2-bedroom private residence right next to a private beach, or it can be as large as 8 to 10 bedrooms if you wanted to do a really special multi-generational family trip. The beauty about New Zealand is that you're never more than a couple of hours away from either mountains or the ocean, and so these properties can really showcase the best of what we have here. We've got some really unique properties as well. So this is Whare Chalet. This is a little bit outside of Queenstown in the South Island. It can have 6 people there at one time. It's only helicopter access. It sits at about 1,800 meters above sea level. The cool thing about this is that when you're up there, you have this entire chalet to yourself. There's no one else around there. You've got incredible hiking on your doorstep. We bring in a private chef that cooks all your meals when you're there. And so if you're looking for something very special, this is like a really, really nice option. Famous luxury lodges. So this is in Taupo, which is in the central North Island. It's about a 3.5-hour drive from Auckland, where I'm based. This was the first of the luxury lodges that was ever developed in the country. So this actually started as a fishing lodge in the 1930s. I'm sure you've got places similar, which have got a very long history in Canada. It's really well known around the world for its kind of the classic touches. It's the kind of place where when royalty visits, so our Queen, which is the same as your Queen, when she comes down or Prince Charles comes down, they like to spend the night here. If you're interested in really that classic luxury experience next to a beautiful river where you can go fly fishing, that's got a lot of heritage, this is a great option. We have a new style of luxury properties that enter, and this is Hapuku Lodge in Kaikoura. So Kaikoura is this is the whale watching Kiwi, and this particular lodge is really, really cool. They're basically like luxury tree houses. So you can see on the top right, you basically have the staircase and you sit just above the trees. On one side, you've got the snow-capped Southern Alps, and then on the other side, you've got the ocean, and you can go straight to the ocean. It's only about a few hundred meters cruise, and you can go and do some incredible whale watching as well. You can go kayaking, there's dolphins there. Yeah, it's just a really, really cool destination. Queenstown, this is Eichardt's hotel. So Queenstown, definitely a must-do. In the South Island, Queenstown's the adventure capital of New Zealand. You're completely sport for choice in terms of the activities you can do here. Eichardt's private hotel has been there since the 1880s. You can see from the bottom right picture, It's a beautiful heritage hotel. In the evening, you can sit in your room and you can watch the sunset over the mountains of Lake Wakatipu with a nice glass of wine in hand. Depending on the room type you can get, this particular one is one of the upper room types. You've got a jacuzzi as well. So really, really cool place to spend 2 or 3 days. And then this is the Linders. Now, this is one of my favorite properties. So this was only built 3 years ago. It's in its own private valley, about 2 hours outside of Queenstown. You're on 5,000 acres of private land, surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. There's only 5 rooms within the property. But then just to the right, not in this picture, you have these Linders pods. So the Linders pods are kind of one tier down from an accommodation perspective, but they're surrounded by glass. So you get this incredible vista on all sides. And the night sky here is absolutely stunning. So the center of the South Island, near where this property is actually a night sky reserve, and it's got some of the the best stars that you can see in the southern hemisphere. So I highly recommend this property as well. We also have Minaret Station in Wanaka, so this is about an hour outside of Queenstown. This is only heli accessed as well, but it is a beautiful property. It's absolutely massive. You've got a lot of guided hikes on your doorstep. If you were to come down in winter, there's some great heli skiing. And it's also a working farm as well. So down in the lower levels of this property, they keep cattle as well, and they keep sheep too. So it's only got 4 small lodges, but very remote. Chef there, really, really cool. We also do luxury super yachts here. So I know when you think of New Zealand, a lot of people think of obviously the mountains. We've got beautiful mountains here, similar to you guys in the west coast of Canada, but we also have incredible beaches. And we have a collection of really nice luxury yachts at a range of price points that you can take out for half a day or multi-night if you're interested, and you can go and explore the island. So where I'm based in Auckland, we have, within a 2 or 3 hour cruise, we've got so many beautiful islands to explore, white sandy beaches, and we can tailor it to suit for a special occasion. Again, you don't have to take it out overnight. You could just take it out for a few hours. But in saying that, though, we also do 4-star properties really, really well. So it's not all about the super high end here. We've got some really iconic, well-priced properties. The one built in the 1920s, it's got a lot of character to it. It's very well priced, and it sits in what we call the Central Plateau, which is a volcanic area in the middle of the North Island, and behind you is Mount Ruapehu. It's a great destination for hiking in the summer months. It's got some of the best hiking you can do in the North Island. But this is a really nice property because you've got a great restaurant, you've got a really, really nice bar, it's got an indoor pool, you've got a golf club right in front, and you've got all these beautiful hikes right on your doorstep, anywhere from 2 hours to multi-day. Similarly, this is Awaroa Lodge. So this is in Abel, Tasman National Park. This is the top of the South Island. And I wanted to put this property in here because it's an example of a really nice family-friendly 4-star property that we work with. So, if you're thinking of coming down here with a family, we also have a collection of really nice properties that we can introduce. Abel Tasman National Park is an awesome destination for kayaking, whether you just for 3 days, and really, really popular with family. Now, New Zealand as a self-drive destination is very, very popular. So the best thing about New Zealand is that it's you never need to drive far to have the landscape, which changes. I mean, it changes all the time. The roads are really, really safe, and you can see a lot in the self-drive holiday. We drive on the left-hand side of the road, but we can organise type of vehicle to suit whatever your needs are. If you want to take a car out only for a day or two and have like a really high-end car, go down to Queenstown and hire a convertible for a day, we could definitely do that. But if you want to have a more mid-range car, and you want to pick it up in Auckland and you want to drive the length of the North Island, or even put it on the car ferry between Wellington and Picton and go from the North Island to the South Island, we can also arrange that. For some clients, it's a really nice way to see this country. We also have some fantastic rail journeys, a little bit shorter than the Rocky Mountain here, but just as spectacular. So the one on the left is the most famous. This is the Transalpine. This runs from Christchurch on the east coast to Greymouth on the west coast. It's only 4.5 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours in duration, but the type of landscape that you cover in that time is just absolutely spectacular. On the top right, this is called the Coastal Pacific. So this actually runs from the top of the South Island right down to Christchurch. And for a lot of it, it follows the ocean. So on one side, you have snow-capped mountains. On the other side, you have the rolling Pacific waves just crashing in right next to the train. In the bottom right, this is the Northern Explorer. So this is a train that runs from Auckland through the central North Island to Wellington. And in the middle, you can see that we go past these beautiful volcanoes as well. So there's really a huge variety of landscapes that you can explore by train that we can offer yourself. Honeymoons and weddings. If you're thinking of coming down here, maybe you want to have celebrate a special wedding anniversary, or you have some family members that are thinking about a honeymoon. This is an awesome destination. I mean, there's so much to offer here. I know it takes a little bit of time to get here by plane, but once you're here, we have some incredible honeymoon destinations that we can tailor to suit. So it's all here. The bottom right, I mean, all of these flights here are the Bay of Islands. The Bay of Islands is a short 45-minute flight north of Auckland, which is the main gateway city if you're coming from Canada. Or you can hire a car, you can drive up there in about 3 to 4 hours. But it's just a beautiful destination. You've got untouched white sandy beaches. We can get you on a yacht if you want to do some sailing, or you can join like a group tour as well. There's kayaking here, beautiful properties, and we can do some nice heli touring as well. Going down to the other end of the country, back down into Queenstown. As I said, Queenstown is the adventure capital of New Zealand. Something that's new that we've just started offering in the last couple of years is Tesla touring, so environmentally friendly, a really cool way to see the destination. And we can set up something really, really nice for you. So if you want to have like a special gourmet lunch in the middle of nowhere, arrive by Tesla, we can do that. That's in the picture on the top left. And then in the bottom right, so the Dark River jet boating, this is about an hour outside of Queenstown. And this is just spectacular. I've done this. You join the jet boat, and these are specially designed jet boats that have been built in New Zealand to handle rivers that have very shallow amount of water. They can go into water up to like a meter in depth. So very, very shallow, because some of the rivers here are very shallow. And you go right up into this spectacular gorge. You've got 2,500 meters on either side, crystal clear water. You've got lush rainforest on each side of the river. Really, really cool. Highly recommended. Golf. So I'm a keen golfer, and New Zealand just has spectacular golf courses. This is one of our new products, it's Alpine heli-golf. So you can see in this picture on the left, off there is Queenstown. We get you in the heli, we fly you up to about 1,300 meters above sea level, and you actually get to tee off on this purpose-built par 3 with Queenstown and the mountains behind you. So there's just some great options there as well. And they're looking at golf as a whole. The range of options here, if you're a keen golfer, is just spectacular, both in the North or South Island. There's been a lot of golf courses designed by professionals. Jack Nicklaus has come down here and got a signature course in the Central North Island. Down in Queenstown, you have 3 or 4 really, really fantastic international class golf courses. And some of them are next to the rolling ocean. Some of them are next to, mountains. So there's some fantastic options. This gives you a good map of where some of our marquee golf courses are. So whether you're starting up in the North Island in Auckland or in the Bay of Islands, or you're working your way down into the South Island, there's plenty of options as well. And if you're really interested, we've got access to some of the top pros in New Zealand. You can go around the golf course with a resident pro, which is pretty cool. Cycling. New Zealand is also a fantastic destination to do some cycling. So we have a great network of cycling trails in both the North and South Island. And also a lot of these have been converted from former rail trails. So what you could do a half day, you could do a full day, or you could do a multi-day. So the Otago Rail Trail is probably the most famous of the cycling trails. This is done, so Otago is down, if you can see where I'm hovering my mouse, it's down here, just near Queenstown in the bottom in the South Island. The great thing about the Otago Rail Trail is that it's got history and cuisine as well as beautiful landscapes. So Otago was where gold was discovered. There was a massive gold rush in the 1850s. So you've got a lot of history about the first settlers coming here, coming to mine the gold. So similar to like the Klondike that you guys have in BC and Western Canada. You've got great food. You've got wineries everywhere. So it's a very Mediterranean style climate. So the varietal of wines that are growing here is really unique within New Zealand. And you've just got these beautiful landscapes to cycle through. That can be done over 3 or 4 days and boutique accommodation along the way. As I mentioned, we're an adventure destination in New Zealand. We have some incredible, in the North Island, it's all volcanic-based hiking. So this is North Island. So when I showed you that picture of the Chateau Tongariro, which was the 4-star property I mentioned a few slides ago, this is just near where you could do this particular hike. So this is called the Tongariro Crossing. Lonely Planet has rated this particular one-day hike. It's one of the top 10 one-day hikes in the world. So we have access to this. It's just really cool. It's about 17 k's long, but it can be tailored to suit fitness levels. And we also have an option where you can be on the track at sunrise with one of our partners down there, and you can basically have the whole thing to yourself. So if you're adventurous, this is definitely a must-do. Similarly, in the South Island, there's lots of really beautiful hiking options. The multi-day ones is kind of the sweet spot. There are single-day hikes as well, but this is probably the best of the multi-day ones, which we work with. It's called the Hollyford track. So it's 4 days, 3 nights. You're basically hiking anywhere from 10 to 20 k's a day. Everything's included. So it's just, and it's a very small group. It's no more than 16 people. All your accommodation is included on the track. It includes a jet boat experience, and then at the end, you finish on the Tasman Sea on the west coast, and you heli right down to Milford Sound, which is just a fantastic way to finish the trip. All your meals are included, and as I said, 16 packs and an expert guide leading you on this trip. But you can also do some private guided hikes. So we're back down in Queenstown again, which is really the adventure capital, as I mentioned. And there's some beautiful properties that we work with, where you can go up into the mountain with one of our expert guides, spend half a day or a full day or multiple days. And then at the end of the day, just come back to some really nice accommodation. This slide on the left is Fiordland Lodge, which is about 2 hours outside of Queenstown. And yeah, at the end of the day, you come here with a nice glass of wine, you watch the sunset over the mountains after doing a nice day's hiking. Fly fishing. So I know you have a lot of fly fishing in Canada. So New Zealand as well, we have some fantastic fly fishing that we can offer you, whether it's half day or a full day in both the North and South Islands. We also have what we call our A&K New Zealand Insider Access. So these are our unique experiences that we offer that really give you a snapshot into something special, and we've got exclusive access to. So on the left, this is a behind-the-scenes tour of the Papa Museum in Wellington with a Maori elder. So this is, if you're going to go to one museum in New Zealand, you have to go to the Papa Museum. It's got the largest collection of cultural artifacts in the country, and it is definitely the best museum to experience in New Zealand. Next to that on the right, so this is the Whare workshop. So in Wellington, it's become a huge film hub. It's where Peter Jackson is based a lot of the time. So the Lord of the Rings movies, a lot of the post-production work is done here. You can actually do a behind-the-scenes workshop tour where you go to Whare Studios and you can see some of the props that they're making for their upcoming movies. So that's a pretty cool thing to do. We have a castle. So on the picture on the bottom left is Larnac Castle. So this is in Dunedin. So Dunedin is the second biggest city in the South Island. The South Island is quite interesting because you've got two main cities. You've got Christchurch and you've got Dunedin. Christchurch was settled by the English. They came here in 6 ships, and it's a very English city. Dunedin was settled by the Scottish. And Dunedin is actually the Gaelic word for Edinburgh. And so it's got a very Scottish heritage. We can do a private tour of this castle. What's really interesting is that you have a Scottish castle built by settlers in the 1860s, but with some New Zealand touches. So it's a really interesting story about how this came to be and how the current owners have maintained the castle and what their vision is for the castle going forward. And on the bottom right, we're back down in Queenstown where they've got some really, and you can actually do a really cool winery cave tour inside the winery for yourself or for a small group. If you like wine, you're sport for choice here. So you can basically craft an entire trip around New Zealand on visiting wineries. The best wineries are found where I'm circling my route, my Mousey and the Hawke Bay Napier, which is famous for Sauvignon Blanc. Marlborough here in the top of the South Island is the largest wine producing area, again, Sauvignon Blanc. And then down here in central Otago in the Queenstown area, it's famous for its Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris. We can actually set up a really interesting behind the scenes experience with local winemakers. This is Brian Taylor from Valli Wines. This is in the Otago region, not far from Queenstown, where he came in and started developing the first of the grape about 30 years ago. And since then, has just gone from strength to strength. So you can spend a half day with him. It's a fascinating time because he tells you about his story. This was not a wine growing region 30 years ago, and now his wines are winning awards all around the world. So pretty interesting. You can also meet here Henry Van Asch on the right. So on the left, this is Jeffrey Kent, who is the founder of the company, Abercrombie & Kent. And on the right, this is Henry Van Asch. Now, he's really interesting because he actually started the first commercial bungee jumping in the world, and New Zealand is the home of the bungee jump. And what Henry Van Asch did in 1985 is that him and a couple of his buddies went to Paris, and they attached a bungee to the Eiffel Tower and jumped off the Eiffel Tower. And they got arrested, but they were released. But they wanted to showcase this new sport and brought it back to New Zealand. And in the late 80s, he developed the bungee. Queenstown is the home of the bungee, but you can also do it in Taupo in the Central North Island. You can spend a half day with him, learn about his story. Really, really interesting. Don't forget about the extraordinary Kiwi bird. So we have a behind-the-scenes tour that we offer clients, private tour in. So Aotearoa, also in the Central North Island, about 3 hours from Auckland, is the cultural heart of New Zealand. It's where the Indigenous Maori culture is most visible. So it's a great place if you want to experience Indigenous Maori culture via a performance, or even doing like a hangi, which is a traditional food where, similar to what they do in Hawaii, they dig like a really, really big pit in the ground. They put all the food and vegetables in there, and they steam it for about 5 to 6 hours, and then you eat it. It's really delicious. But also there, we have our Meet the Extraordinary Kiwi bird, and what A&K Philanthropy sponsors is the Kiwi chick rehabilitation program. So Kiwis here are a protected species. The reason that they're our most prized bird and kind of, there's a symbol in New Zealand is basically until humans came in, and New Zealand was, the interesting thing about New Zealand is that we were basically the last of the major land masses to be colonized by anyone. There were no humans here until 1,000 years ago. Because of that, there were no predators, and that's why our most famous bird has no wings, because it didn't need to escape anything. It didn't need to have any wings. It could basically roam around, and there was nothing that was going to eat it. However, since humans have come and we've brought our own set of pests with us, some of these pests have been a threat to the Kiwi. So there's a big movement throughout New Zealand get rid of some of the pests that were brought in from overseas, and there's a lot more sanctuaries now that are coming up all around the country, and there's a real movement to protect our most famous bird. And this is about the rehabilitation from when they take the egg, and you can actually come at certain times of the year when the Kiwis are hatching and learn all about it. It's a really fascinating process that's going on to basically return as much of the Kiwi to the native way of living, and return the land to how it was pre-human settlement as much as possible. Now back down into Milford Sound, which is the slide that I showed you right at the start. This is our ultimate Fiordland trip. This is definitely a must-do if you're in Queenstown. Getting into the heli, flying over the mountain to the west coast. I know you have beautiful glaciers in the west coast and the western parts of Canada, but the interesting thing about the glaciers and the mountains that we have here is that the trees are all ferns and rainforests. So you have these beautiful glaciers, you have these stunning mountain peaks, but then you have like this incredible foliage and ferns and beautiful trees as well to explore. So we can land in these remote places of what we do for a really high-end experience down to get. And then if you want, we can set up such champagne. So this is when Jeffrey Kent, our founder, came down here about 3 years ago. He was doing around the world by private jet experience. He took a group of about 70 clients. They stopped in multiple places around the world over about 3 weeks. And they came through Queenstown for 3 nights. And we set up some Dom Perignon in the mountains with fresh crayfish, which is what you guys call lobster. And it was a fantastic experience. And then we went to Fiordland Lodge, set up a really nice lunch as well. This is all stuff that you can do. And before I finish, I wanted to remind you about New Zealand. This is the first time that this is being done, and this is going to be there's 2 departures in October. and basically we are taking a very select group of clients around from Auckland, starting in Auckland, going down into the Hawke's Bay, go then into Dunedin and finishing in Queenstown. So it's over 10 nights, 11 days, best of the best accommodation, and it's going to showcase everything that New Zealand can offer, both from a culinary perspective, an adventure, cultural perspective. But the beauty is that you're going to be going around in this private jet, and I highly recommend if you'd like to see New Zealand from a luxury perspective, from a program which I've been very heavily involved in, have a look at this. We still have some availability going into October and November 2022. This gives you a bit of an idea of the type of aircraft that we're going to be using once you get down here. So it's going to be privatized. It's a very small group, maximum 18 people, and it's really trip. And just to let you know, the flight times are actually quite short. So Auckland to the Hawke's Bay is now 15. Hawke's Bay down. But what it is, it's going to swoop down and go over Stewart Island, which is a little island that's down at the very bottom of the South Island. You're going to fly over that, and that is just a beautiful island, and it's completely predator-free as well. So you'll be able to see that from the air. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We can talk more if there's any Q&A. This is about the reopen plan for New Zealand. There's basically a 4-step plan. We're kind of between step 1 and step 2 at the moment, where we're in a really big vaccination push at the moment. So that's the number 1 priority. To give you an idea, I just got my first vaccine on Sunday, and the next 3 months, basically to the end of the year, we want to get up to between 70 and 80% of the population double vaccinated from the age of 12 and above. Right now, we're sitting at about 35% double vaccinated and about 67, 68% single. So, you know, we were late to get the vaccine here. We had to wait our turn, but now that it's here, there's a huge push. And then after that, there's going to be a reopen plan based on a country being either low risk, medium risk, or high risk. I know that Sheila mentioned about the ever-changing nature of international travel in this post-pandemic world. I'm happy to have a little bit more of a talk about that. I don't want to get bogged down with this slide. There's way too many words on it, not enough pictures. But I just wanted to, you know, give a little bit of an intro, and I can talk more if there's any Q&A. And that brings us to the end of our presentation about New Zealand. So, look, I know I covered a lot of things in a very, very small amount of time. But I hope it gave you a little bit of an insight of what we can offer, you know, yourself and your traveling companions, whether you're going as a couple, whether you're going as friends, whether you're going as a 4-star, 5-star, whatever your interests are, we have it all covered here. And I also work a lot behind the scenes. I'm a country manager, so if you come down here, one of my roles is to welcome you to the country. I usually put a call in on the first or second day to welcome you here. And then myself and my team are always here in the background should you need any assistance when you're here. And that's what you get with Abercrombie & Kent. We've been here in this destination for more than 30 years. We know New Zealand like the back of our hands. And if you do want to then do an extension to Australia, that's very easy because we have a huge team over in Australia as well. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to throw it back to Sheila. And then if there's any Q&A, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions. And thanks for listening.
That's awesome, Chris. Thank you. Wow, that you crammed a lot in a very short time, but that's great. I feel like we got a really good overview of North and South Island and the things that you're recommending to people right now, especially the villas and the adventure stuff, which is certainly New Zealand is really known as an adventure destination. So you can do soft adventure or hard adventure. Hard adventure being where you need equipment and need training, to soft adventure being culinary. And I think you got through that, and we didn't even mention Lord of the Rings, did we?
No, but I mean, I think everyone knows that this is where you can do a lot of stuff with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. You can visit locations. You can do a lot of. You can go and see, you know, some of the filming sets where they produce the movie. So, and you can also go to Hobbiton. I didn't even mention Hobbiton, but if you're interested in Hobbiton, or if you've got kids as well, it's really cool. Hobbiton is 2 hours from Auckland, and it's literally where they shot The Hobbit. And you can go and have lunch there and do like a private tour. It's really cool. It's actually one of the highlights for a lot of people. I didn't even cover it in my slide. Sorry. But yeah, that's
I'd like to just mention it because I always have some Lord of the Rings fans, but it's nice that to give people a sense there's so much else to see and do. Of course, if you're into Lord of the Rings, we can work with you on that. But if you want to avoid it completely, you can do that too. There's so much to see and do. I just want to mention that most of the people on the call are from Canada. So when you talk about how you're just getting started, Chris, we were in the same boat as you, probably March, April. So you're about 5 months behind where we were. We had a very late start. We couldn't get the vaccines. Vaccines were ordered and not delivered. And once we started, though, we made up for lost time very quickly. I don't recall the latest numbers, but I think we're close to 80% of the population above 12 has been vaccinated doubly. So we're doing tremendous right now. And I think the city of Ottawa, where many of the folks attending today are from, we're over 90%, I think. Does anybody know the latest numbers? Anyway,
wow.
just to give you a sense that 87, Nora? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, we came on very strong. I'm sure that New Zealand and your counterparts in Australia can do that as well. Folks, Chris stepped through everything very, very quickly. We have him here. He's live from Auckland. We have Carson also with Abercrombie and Kent. If you have any questions, please feel free to either turn your cameras on, or you could just leave the camera off and ask, and we can hear your voice, or you can just type in a question and I can read it. So if you have anything you want to ask or are wondering about, now's the time. Nora, I think you did ask a question as we were going through about the museum that Chris had mentioned.
Oh yeah, that's right. I just missed the name of it actually. It's
called Te Papa, T-E-P-A-P-A. It's in Wellington. T-E-P-A-P-A.
Thank you.
And that's a very famous museum. Anybody have, Laura, what's your t-shirt you have on there? All blacks? You're on mute.
No, it's the haka.
What
the rugby guys say before, or actually scream or whatever before the game.
So on the topic of rugby, we actually have a behind the scenes meet a former All Black experience we can offer if you're interested in rugby. Yeah. So rugby is like, I guess, ice hockey to you guys in Canada. It's like our national sport, and people go crazy for it here. So we're a small nation, only 5 million people, but like when the All Blacks are playing, pretty much everyone tunes in. So yeah, we usually do pretty well on the world stage. I know you guys don't follow rugby much, but yeah, it's a big deal down here in New Zealand.
Sorry, let me turn that off. I'm getting prompts to upgrade my Zoom. No, thank you. Not right now.
There's a question down here.
Oh, okay. Going to New Zealand.
Monique. Oh, cool.
Yep. Going to New Zealand in April 23. This is Monique with a cruise. She stops in Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, and Fiordland Park. That's awesome. So
fantastic.
And
so
Nick, I think you've indicated you're traveling solo with a cruise company too. So obviously there's lots to see and do for solo. New Zealand is very friendly for solo travelers as well, right, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very safe destination, and yeah, if you're traveling solo, no problem at all. And I think just on in terms of the time frame. Sorry, is there another question? Nari?
Yeah, my question is, do you need to be quarantined if you come to New Zealand for any time, or what's?
Oh, right. So yeah, I should probably explain. Right now, every single person, but basically the borders are shut, and anyone coming in, most people that are coming in are Kiwis, and everyone has to do 14 days mandatory quarantine. So that's where things are at now. We're still working out what the reopen plan's going to look like. I see that you guys have basically said if you're double vaccinated, you can come into Canada without needing any quarantine. Is that right? Is that what you guys have done?
As
Is
of
that for the whole?
September 8th, it's very recent. So we're
Right.
just a little bit ahead of you. We were letting the Americans in if they're fully vaccinated August 7th, and international as of September 8th. Just at the beginning of the July, though, Canadians didn't have to quarantine when they came back if they did travel. So we're just opening up and just getting moving. Our counterparts in the US were traveling more broadly and more frequently than Canadians were. Of course, we're seeing some changes internationally with where Americans can travel and how they can travel right now as a result of the numbers in the States. So, you know, these things can change. You guys all know every country can make their own rules about their own sovereignty and how they let people in and what precautions they have. The EU came out with an announcement at the beginning of September that said Americans, even if they're fully vaccinated, should quarantine. It's up to every member state in the EU how they apply that and how they adopt it. So we're seeing very big differences across Europe in terms of how the countries handle that. And just like Europe, we're seeing with Europe now, Canada went through that, and I'm sure New Zealand and Australia will go through that. I know that the numbers or the plan you mentioned, is it you're thinking June, July 22 it might be open, or have you got that?
Well, I'm thinking that at this stage, they're still going to continue quarantine. It seems like with the current plan, it's going to be based on the risk level of the countries the clients are traveling from. And so they're looking like there'll be 3 levels. It'll be like low, medium, or high risk. If you're coming from a low risk country, and what they do, they base that on the number of cases over the last couple of weeks. So this can change, just like what's happening in Europe. Low risk means you can come into the country, you just have to do 1 test, and then you're good to go. Medium risk country, they're saying there'll still be an element of quarantine. It may be 4 or 5 days, and then high risk will be the full 2 weeks. So the good things about Canada is that you guys have managed to keep your numbers relatively low, right? So did you get that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think that puts you in very good stead. I'm not so confident about the US at this point in time, but who knows what it's going to be like in 6 months' time. But I would say, look, if we fast forward a year, we should be good to go by then. So if we're looking at, you know, September of 2022, by then we would have worked everything out. It's just we've still got a lot to work out. We've only got, you know, we don't even have 40% of our population vaccinated. So, and I think because of the very contagious nature of Delta, they're just being very cautious here. Because if I go back a month, we had no cases of COVID here for a full 6 months. So like, yeah, I mean, it just didn't exist. COVID wasn't a problem. And then Delta came in, and now everyone's been like, they've been put on guard, basically. So it's changing all the time, put it that way. They're still working it out.
Of course.
But I'm confident for, you know, the back end of 2022, because we'll have so much more time to not only be vaccinated, but to work out, you know, the guidelines that we need to put in place. And I think what we do, because we are 6 months behind you guys, we look at what's working in Canada and Europe, because, you know, you guys are kind of like the guinea pig, so to speak, because you're on the cutting edge of being vaccinated and opening your borders. And we're kind of looking at and saying, okay, well, that works, maybe that doesn't work. And so we'll have a much better idea, I would say, early in 2022 in terms of what the reopen plan looks like. It's just a little bit too early at this point in time.
Perfect. Thank you. And Nora just punched in, she looked up the numbers for Ottawa, 81% fully vaccinated over 12, and 87% have had at least 1 dose. So
that's fantastic. There's a question here I see from Anne. Just maybe it's nice to cover. She says, going hopefully to New Zealand in summer 2022. So I take it that's like November, December, maybe, on a concert tour in Auckland and Christchurch, what to see and where to go from there as an extension solo. So is that finishing in Christchurch, or where's it finishing?
We'll get her to punch in. Anne is a professional musician, so I guess
Oh, fantastic.
they have
We don't know yet, but I believe we start out in Auckland and then sing in Christchurch as the last concert.
Okay. I mean, I would definitely, if you can extend for 7 to 10 days, I would really recommend that. You've got a couple of options from Christchurch. What's really nice to do is to take the train. So remember the slide I showed of the train, the Trans-Alpine, it takes about 5 hours. It goes from Christchurch across to the west coast. That's just beautiful. And then you can spend a couple of nights down in Franz Josef, which are the glacier towns. And then from there, you can continue down into Queenstown area and finish in Queenstown. That could be really, really nice. Or you can stay on the east coast of the South Island and you can go from Christchurch to the Mount Cook area. So Mount Cook is our highest mountain. That's a beautiful area as well. And you can spend a couple of nights there in the mountains and then from there continue down to Queenstown.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And
No
Chris,
problem.
how's it working with Abercrombie and Kent? If I had clients, use Anne as an example here, if she has plans, obviously everything is subject to change. But
Yes.
if someone wanted to book something in 22 right now, are we able to make bookings? Are you taking deposits or are things still at a standstill?
No, we are. We're actively taking bookings. We're taking deposits, and we're good to go. Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say this. I mean, if the people on this call are genuinely interested in coming to New Zealand in 22, 23, I would start thinking about it now because we're going to have 2 full summers of no booking. So all those people from 2020 have been pushed to 2021, now going into 2022. So if you are interested, don't leave it to the last moment. I would really start thinking about it because once we open, it's going to be busy. And we've seen this in other A&K destinations that have opened and have just been absolutely slammed because remember, there's all those people that have been booked for 1 or 2 years ago that still are in the system for next summer. So just keep that in mind, I would say. Because we are going to be a popular destination for summer 22, 23. 100%.
Yeah, especially, the wide open spaces. It's like Canada. We're seeing it in Newfoundland, trips selling out for 22 already. We're seeing it with Rocky Mountaineered, certainly within our own country, but also people who are coming in. It's a wide open spaces for sure. The smaller groups that you can travel with, but it's also like you were saying, if you had a trip booked in 2020 and you were planning to do a bucket list destination like New Zealand, just because COVID happened, your desire to do that bucket list hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's grown stronger. And you might have had that trip canceled and rebooked to 21 and now canceled and rebooked to 22. All that to say, there's not going to be a lot of space. So we use the phrase in the cruise world, the race for space, because as people start to want to reconfirm their plans and as the vaccines have taken hold and we start to travel, we're seeing very little space available. So if New Zealand is on your bucket list, it's a trip you want to do. We should probably chat and get something on the books, and I can work with Chris and Carson to either customize a trip or maybe do a small group. I know I was talking with Sonia from Southeast Asia. We did a presentation with Carson and Sonia before, and we had some preliminary chats of what we were going to do in 23. But now that people are getting more confident and starting to actually put bookings on the books, we'll start to take that forward in a real way. Laura, do you want to open your mic and read what you just wrote?
Oh, I thought it said Kia ora, but it says Kaikoura, which has got to do with basically celebrating the fact that you're still alive. So that's kind of a good saying for COVID times.
Is that on your shirt? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the haka.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, that's definitely true for COVID. I was talking with a new client today, and we're kind of getting into that revenge travel idea. You're taking revenge on the virus for making you not be able to travel for a couple of years, which means, we're getting back to travel in a big way, spending the budget you've saved for a couple of years, which helps with those bucket list destinations like New Zealand as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you elaborate a little bit more on timeline? I think you mentioned, for Anne extending by, 7 to 10 days. You also mentioned, combining with Australia. What do you recommend as far as, how much time people need to carve out to make a trip down to New Zealand, and whether they're doing it as a combination or, clearly there's enough to do just in New Zealand itself. So what are some kind of ideas as lengths of trips?
So for me, my personal recommendation is that instead of rushing both countries for this, that you just choose one for this trip. And for New Zealand, I would say a minimum 10 days. 10 days, you can get a nice, feel for the destination. But the sweet spot for me personally is around 13, 14 days, 2 weeks, I think is a really, really good amount of time. If you have 3 weeks, then wow, we can really show you New Zealand, or you can get a bit of Australia in as well. So 3 weeks is probably the minimum to do both countries. It's kind of like if you were going to Europe, France, Spain, Italy, you can spend 2 weeks in those individual countries, and they're small countries, but there's so much to see and do. New Zealand is very much like that. My preference is to focus just on New Zealand as a single destination. But if you want to do a little bit of both, then obviously we can include Australia. But yeah, for New Zealand, minimum of 10 days if you're coming here. 2 weeks for me is the sweet spot. And then if you're doing New Zealand and Australia, I would say 3 weeks is a really good amount of time.
And the clients I have, the bucket list trips, Australia, New Zealand are very common. People tend to think they can do both. But I just like to encourage my Canadian clients as well. If we have someone from Australia who says they're coming to Canada and they want to see it all in 2 weeks, well, the only way you're going to see all of Newfoundland and go across to Quebec and Alberta, and go right over BC, there's no way you're going to see it all in 2 weeks. And the only way you can see parts of it is if you're flying, or if you're, we have a private jet at our disposal. So you're not going to see all of New Zealand and Australia in 2 weeks, unless we have a private jet, and then we can pick and choose different spots. But Chris is quite right, pick a spot, go. If you want to tack on a little bit of Australia, we could certainly, bring you to the Great Barrier Reef, for example, or Ayers Rock, but you're not going to, Uluru, you're not going to see it all.
And I think just on that, to give you guys an idea of how small New Zealand is, the longest commercial flight you can take in New Zealand is 2 hours. That's the longest. And that basically takes you from the top of the country right down to the bottom. But within that very small amount of space, you have so many different landscapes, as I showed you from the slide. So you've got volcanoes, you've got glaciers, you've got white sandy beaches, you've got rainforests. It's so varied over a very small geographic area. So you don't actually spend a lot of travel time, which is good, getting around.
Laura's just noting she spent 3 months and saw some South Pacific islands too. Did you go to Cook Island and those kind of spots, Laura?
I was all over the place. Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Guam, Samoa, Togo, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, Nauru.
Wow.
Basically any island that was a country.
Oh, cool. Wow. Nice work.
Yeah.
Laura's, when I have some clients who have a list of places they haven't yet been to, and Laura's one of them. She has a list of places she's crossing off. So she's done quite well. So very specific interests on where she wants to go from now.
Not many people, there are not many tourists in Tuvalu, that's for sure.
No. And a lot of those islands, quite a few of those islands you've mentioned, have never had one case of COVID. So the Cook Islands, for example, Samoa, they've had the whole way through, 0, because it's so isolated.
Yeah. And, New Zealand was doing quite well until recently too, just like Newfoundland in Canada. We had Newfoundland was very low, 0 cases, very strict restrictions on travel coming in and out. And then they had a Delta outbreak in March, April.
Delta unfortunately changes everything, but we're getting through the vaccination. We'll get there. We're just a little bit behind you guys, but yeah,
We'll catch
everyone
up. We'll
wants
catch
New-
up and surpass
Well,
us, I'm
yeah.
sure.
We everyone wants New Zealand to open up. I mean, we're a beautiful destination and it's a great place to get stuck. I couldn't pick any better place to get stuck in a global pandemic in terms of what we have here. But it would be nice to actually go to another country. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. It's going to be 2022.
And Chris, it's the vast majority of people in New Zealand live in the North Island, right? Is it 2/3 or 75% or something like that?
Yeah, almost 80% live in the North Island. So Auckland, where I live, that's got about 1/3 of the population. So we're really like the economic center of the country. So 1.7 million people out of 5 million people, and there's about 15 million sheep.
Wow. Awesome. Well,
we used to have 60 million sheep. If you came here in the 80s, there were 3 million people and 60 million sheep. 20 sheep for every single person.
And now you're cutting down COVID. You were eating a lot.
Yeah, sheep, they're just not as popular, the sheep, anymore. They were. There's more people, less sheep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I'll just check. Does anyone have another question before we let these good folks go? Oh, I wasn't sure. Michelle, did you have a question or just, no? Okay.
No.
Last call, anyone?
And Monique,
Rose
have
had
fun
to
on your
leave. She said
trips.
she'll be in touch. Nora's saying very nice presentation. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for getting up early in the morning in Auckland and joining us. Thank you, Carson, for hopping on to be our contact to A&K in the States. And everybody, thank you for joining. I will follow up and send a copy of the recording if you have any interest, especially if, you know, I'm looking at the different group trips I'm going to be putting together for 22, 23. If you have an interest in New Zealand as a group trip, please let me know. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Carson.
Thanks,
This was
Sheila.
great.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great night.
Bye. Bye.